Hello, everyone. I don't know why my phone is dark on my end. We are live today. And I am just waiting to see if I'm joined by my co host of the evening. Let's see how we go. Hello. So, I always like starting off while I'm waiting to link up is ask my basic question. What are you reading today, or what are you interested in reading tomorrow? I myself have started American Gods by Neil Gaiman since I've actually never read that series before, or read that book before, only seen the show, because I definitely watched the show first. But yeah. So as I wait, how's everyone's eating? Evening. Obviously, I'm like in another world of my own. But yeah. Okay, so I don't see him. Oh, I see him right now. Here we go. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can hear and see you, so it must be working.
Yeah, well, welcome. I'm excited we got to link up tonight and get to talk about books.
Awesome.
So, how I usually do this is because, and I don't know how many times you've been live before, but you'll have your followers, and I will have probably some of my followers get the notification that we're live and jump on. And so, I always like to start off by you introducing yourself, what you write, who you are. I'll do my little spiel on my end, and then from there, we'll just go wherever the evening takes us.
Okay, awesome. All right, so my name is James Moore, and I go by the moniker of James the Writer on TikTok, trying to build a following on book talk, writer talk, author talk. I write in various genres. I have a philosophy that the genre, I'm not saying that genre doesn't matter, but genre does not keep me from writing a good story. So the book that I do have out home, if I can hold it up and show people, something
Yes.
that I've learned. Yeah, something that I've learned on TikTok quickly is how to read backwards and visualize backwards because I wasn't sophisticated enough to show the to do the flip on my side. I didn't want to mess things up for tonight. But that book has been categorized as a YA sci-fi dark fantasy by the publisher. World Castle Publishing picked up that book, and the story behind it is kind of interesting. Maybe we'll get into it later. But I have a couple of other books that I'm trying to get sold and considering maybe self-publishing. One is a thriller that's called Charlotte: The Price of Vengeance, about a housewife in the 70s that has a best friend from childhood who is murdered. No one believes it's a murder. She decides to go take care of things herself. And the um, the other book that I'm trying to get sold and I'm in draft number one of is called Kiki Diamond Bounty Hunter, and it's about a former Marine named Kiki Diamond who is a bail enforcement agent, and she's dealing with PTSD, daddy issues, and wanting to become a lawyer. But to pay the bills, she goes and hunts people down who has jumped bail.
Okay. So that's actually quite a range of genres. And I guess I kind of want to like pick your brain about like what has inspired you or how you're going to market yourself going forward as an author with different genres, or have you thought about that so far? But just to get through my little spiel of the day, I'm Katharine Wibell. I'm a fantasy author, um, predominantly epic fantasy, high fantasy, and various age brackets. I have three series currently. The first one, I guess we'll talk about tonight, is the Jed Chronicles. I'll tilt my little screen. Doo-doo-doo-doo. This is my beautiful reverse poster because of that TikTok issue. But the Jed Chronicles, I have two out right now. They are young adult, portal fantasy, noble bright fantasy. It's essentially a multiverse of 12 magical worlds, and it's pretty diverse in all the different kind of creatures, beings, and the like that are pulled from various mythologies all around the world. And I really enjoy that one. It's just a fun fantasy. I have also the Incarn Saga, which is a 4-book series and was my debut series. It's a new adult, so it gets dark fantasy. It does get a little grittier, and it's based in and around a war scenario where a kingdom is threatened by another country, and the local populace of the shapeshifters and the humans have to decide if they can push aside their differences to unite to fend off a threat. And that was just a fun one to kind of kickstart my career as a writer and get involved with that. And then my third series is the Guardian Speaker. Sorry, it's like the covers are very dark on the screen. But right now I have 7 of those. They're an adult novella series based on kind of the grimdark-esque side of fantasy, and it's based in and around Norse mythology. So you'll see a lot of people during the Viking era, and Yggdrasil, the World Tree, the 9 Realms, and a lot of stuff in and around that. So that's a fun one as well. But those are my series at the moment, and let's get back to you. So you said your first book is a young adult. What was it again? Sorry.
It was classified as a young adult sci-fi dark
Ooh,
fantasy. And
okay.
I, as I write the book, I'm not thinking about a genre or classification or
Mm-hmm.
anything. It was the publisher that decided to, okay, that's the slot we're putting this book in. The book itself, Home, it's about a young man, about 19, 17 years of age. He's been raised by a clandestine secret government organization who wants to weaponize his ability to walk in the realm of angels and demons and his power of telekinesis. And they want to use him to fight a demonic war.
Ooh, wow.
So that's the story with Home. And the thing is with this book is that I kind of fell into making the book by accident. My real passion, well, I love writing in general in all forms, but my real passion and hope is to become a screenwriter, to write for television or movies, that sort of
Oh,
thing. So I was working with a group online. We were putting together an animated show, thinking about doing that. I was writing scripts for that as just part of the team, hoping that we'd be able to sell something. And it kind of fell apart because everybody was all over the world. Somebody's in South Africa, another person's in Greenland, and it's just fell apart. But the leader of the group said, "Well, I want to do a video game. Will you write the story? I want to base the video game off a story." So I said, "Sure, I'll write a story." And he just gave me a premise. He just said, "Okay, young man can go into can talk to demons and angels. Go." so we went with that. I kept writing what I thought was going to be a short story, but it just kept getting longer and longer.
Yep.
And as novels go, this basically is a novella. It's not a novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short read. It's about 36,000 words.
Yeah,
But
yep.
after I was done with it, that project fell apart too. He decided not to actually make the video game, but we had a signed agreement that the story itself is mine. I can do with it what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'll just shop it around. And I actually went to one book festival in the local area. I live in the Hampton Roads area, and they had a seminar there on how to publish a book, how to get it noticed, and that sort of thing. And I asked a specific question. I said, "Well, what if you have a small book? What if you have something like 36,000 words, something like that? You want to get that published?" And then the lady, she wasn't rude about it or anything, but she basically explained that if I'm not Stephen King, I'm not going to get this published because no
It's
one
hard to
wants to.
deliver.
Yeah, and I said, well, I'm obviously not Stephen King. I looked in the mirror that day and I saw that wasn't him. So I kind of just sat on the story, and every once in a while I would submit to a publisher that I see is taking submissions, and I kept getting rejection after rejection. Anybody who's out there who's a writer, if you're starting out, what you need to do is cherish and mount up your rejections because that's going to eventually get you a yes. So the more rejections you get, the happier you should be because you're just that much closer to your yes. So when I
Like,
got my response from World Castle asking if I'm still interested in publishing the book, I didn't know what to do with it. I know what to do with rejections, but I didn't know what to do with acceptance.
What do I do with a yes?
Yeah, what I do with a yes? Also, I accept. That's what I do. So that's what happened with that book. It came about almost by accident. But I know we on this show. I'm hoping that we're going to be going back and forth talking about each other, right? Because it
Yes, what
seems like
like yeah,
what you are.
absolutely.
You seem super prolific. How long have you been writing?
Oh Lord. It's one of those the answer I like to use is I've always been writing, but no,
Okay.
I've always been one of those people who've come up with stories and characters and backstories. And actually, my young adult series are actually based off of the multiverse developed by my sister and I when we were children and developing our imaginary play out in the country and all of those kind of stuff. And it was a lot of fun, but I really just kept going back to those characters and the diverse world systems and magic systems, and really wanted to be able to share that with the world. So I always knew I was going to publish those books one way, shape, or form. Didn't know the steps in between, but that I knew that was going to happen. I just didn't know that I would write an entire different series before I got to them. The way
That's
life is.
that, that's amazing. You're just so prolific. I mean, I can't imagine writing that much successfully. But since you started talking about your series, there's a question that's popped into my head. I have to ask you: how much of an influence is it, or are you even influenced by the House of Dragons, Rings of Power, that stuff out there that's being streamed right now? Do you watch that sort of thing?
Yes, I definitely watch those, but it's interesting in the sense of what I read because up until very, very recently, as in joining this platform, I predominantly, because I'm that weird person, really enjoyed ancient epic sagas, poems, and prose. So I was the one who would read the Odyssey for fun multiple times,
Uh-huh.
or yeah, the Icelandic sagas, or stuff like that because I enjoy it. So up until recently, I haven't read a lot of current fantasy, and I'm trying to change that and get more involved with reading all sorts of fantasy, indie and not. And that's been a lot of fun, but thankfully, because of the route I've taken, I can't really say I've been highly influenced in my writing. Going forward, that may change. But thankfully, at this moment, the series that I had were already kind of set in stone before I got involved reading my contemporaries. But yeah, so I was more influenced, and a lot, and if people read my books, will kind of definitely see I really love mythology. So I do pull from a lot of source material of world mythologies when I write
Okay,
fantasy.
that's very interesting. I think one person said the what Chronicles. I think they want to hear the title again.
Oh, I have the Jed Chronicles. It's Djed is how you say Jed. I know it's weird. It's actually ancient Egyptian, but the first book is easier. It's called the 12 Tasks. And if you remember my name and you can follow my handle, Katharine Wibell, it's the 12 Tasks. And again, that's a young adult, and it spans my main character's teenage years and into her early 20s. So each book kind of is almost a different year of her life. But I really like that one. It's just fun.
Awesome. So
And
you
yes,
thoroughly enjoy writing.
oh yes, oh yes. It is something I am trying to keep up with it as a full-time job with I'm also an artist. That's kind of my other full-time job. Juggling. I feel like many writers have multiple hats they use. But yeah, I see some comments here. Odyssey, yes, I do enjoy that. And another one says, I write occasionally. I have ended up with quite a few individual scenes, but nothing that links together. Have you ever had that problem yourself about having great ideas, snippets, but they don't kind of, now I can't think the right word, mesh together to make a, perfect story?
Right. Well, I am right now. I My full time job is not writing. That's the goal. And normally, when the idea pops into my head, I just go straight to my idea book and I write it down. And
No.
right now, I'm keeping. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's essential. I do posts on TikTok, really encouraging people to say, "Hey, as soon as it pops into your head, you need to write it down, get it on your phone or something like that, because it's like the ether. It will disappear, and you'll say, what was that great idea that I had? And then when you watch the same person did a movie about it on Netflix, you'll be kicking yourself. So make sure that you have some kind of resource to write down your ideas as they come to you. But as far as the problem of having those ideas, I have them in a list. Right now, I would have to say individual ideas. I would have to say maybe there are like 70 or 80 of them, either movie ideas, short stories, novels, or whatever. I've categorized them. And for me, the goal is to never outlive that list. You're never going to be able to get everything done anyway. But I have a production partner in movie making, and I have the satisfaction to do a lot of stuff as short movies or what we call short shorts. A movie that's a minute long if I have an idea for something,
Yeah.
but it has to be affordable. It has to be doable. Something that's realistic that we can do, and I get to satisfy a lot of that. But you're right. There's some ideas that kind of are beyond me right now. I can't do anything about them, you know,
Yep.
because the opening scene is in the middle of the ocean. Well, I don't have an ocean. I don't have a
Yep.
helicopter.
Yep.
It's not going to work out, but it's, a great idea that I just have to put on the shelf until, you know, some other opportunity comes along. But something that I've learned the in the industry that I want to enter is that everything I'm doing now is a resume. What eventually happens in screenwriting is I write something that's super fantastic. It wins a bunch of awards at festivals or whatever, and then somebody notices me on IMDb and it says, "Man, you look like you can do the writing thing. We're not going to do your thing, but here's somebody else's story that needs punching up, or here's an idea that a producer had. We need to do a script on it or whatever." So what I'm doing now is my resume, and if I'm blessed one day I'll get to do an idea that's my own, but generally screenwriters work on other people's um, input material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think that's pretty kind of fascinating because I don't know your side of the screenwriting side of writing community, but what I am aware, it's a very different type of writing in the sense of how you structure it.
Hmm.
And I don't know when you say screenwriting, if you're writing it with particular, actors or characters in mind, to be specific actors in mind for your characters when you're coming up with your people and kind of the accents, or I don't know. Again, with screenwriting, I've read a few kind of plays, but it's just a different kind of style of writing. So different. It's like foreign. Very foreign.
Yeah, it is very different because your audience, instead of the general public, your audience is the director who is keeper of the story
Mm-hmm.
and the talent, the people that's going to actually trying to bring these characters to life. So there's a lot that goes into a novel that you don't put into a screenplay because you're not trying to entertain those people. You're just trying to give them the situation or
Mm-hmm.
give them the material to be able to do their craft and their work. And it's very different to do a story where you want to try and get somebody to visualize what's going on, the raw public to say, "Oh, I understand this person's walking in the woods and there's a monster after them and this the high tension and everything." Whereas if it's a screenplay, you just kind of describe the scene and let them do the job of putting it on the screen for you.
That's awesome. That is amazing. So you say you want to get into screenwriting, or are you already a screenwriter and you're just building, like you said, your uh, repertoire?
Well, kind of a connection of my question to you when I asked you how long you've been writing. You say you've always been writing, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you would say that you've always been a writer. I'll say that I'm already a screenwriter. It would be nice to get paid for it, but I'm not right now. But I am a screenwriter, and I've had a number of my projects, my creations actually be put on film and with my production partner, his name is Charles Townsend, and we've submitted to festivals. We've gotten laurels at different festivals and acceptances and that sort of thing. So I am a screenwriter right now. Now, a professional, that's kind of on the horizon, but we hope to work there.
I understand. I mean, I think there are like all different levels of writers, no matter what your niche is, from those who do it for just pleasure and fun for themselves to those who do it with the end game of being full time or to supplement their job, and then those who are full time. So, I mean, there are all different kind of levels of writers out there, and thankfully, at this moment, knock on wood, I can call myself a full time writer. But no, that's really fascinating. And let me go back to your book one more time for sure, because I do want to ask, because
Mhm.
you use I'm true indie as an author. You used a publishing house for your first novel. What kind of formats does your book come in? Because I know a lot of people, everybody has their preference. I'm a print person myself. I like paperback or hardcover. There are people who like ebook. There are people who like audio. What formats are yours? Obviously, I think it was a paperback.
Well, this is actually a hardcover,
Hardcover.
and
Okay.
yeah, and I was actually surprised when I was contacted by World Castle because normally they have a word limit on the hardcover, but I guess they kind of, bent the rule for me and they did a hardcover version that's available. It's available in paperback and as an ebook, and it's also available as an audio book. Now,
You got it all.
I- yeah, they kind of did it all. Now, what I went to their website and listened to some of the audiobook thing, and it's the artificial intelligence version. It's not like an
Mhm.
actor that's saying the lines. And I don't want to put down my book or anything like that, but I hope that in the future we'll have it done so that there's a professional voice actor doing it, because I think that you miss out on a lot if you don't have that. Some people prefer to have the AI. God bless you. Go to worldcaps.com and look for James Moore, and he's got one of those AI books out there. But for those who are looking for something else, I'm going to see if I can talk my publisher into doing it with an actor, and I would actually be able to provide that work because we've already put another book of mine, the one I mentioned before, Charlotte. That's being worked right now. It's in the process of being an audiobook.
That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, and we hope to see how it does in the market. And if it does do well, then maybe I'll sell it as, the printed version.
Okay, neat. Yeah, no, I understand that feeling of trying to get like good narrators for your audiobooks because all three of my series are being converted at different stages. And my Viking series, The Guardian Speaker, I actually, probably not even a full week ago, had the second one release an audiobook and had an actor, George Blagden, narrate that. And he actually was acted on the TV series The Vikings and
Oh.
really liked the series. And so it worked really well because I was like, well, you acted in that show and you're working on another Nordic project. But that's been a lot of fun to kind of get used to that process and find people. But yeah, narrators, I think, are acted by living, breathing people versus
Mhm.
AI. Do add a little something because they can do the inflections and they can, I don't know, I haven't listened to an AI narrator or narration before, but I assume, with the person, a living person, they're going to be able to change voices a little bit more and it's, a nicer read on the ear. But either way, it is fascinating to me the more I've started moving into producing or getting involved with producing uh, these kind of audiobooks is because there is such a strong community who just listens to them for different reasons. So sometimes it's because they don't have time to sit down and read a book, and putting a audiobook on the car while they drive is the only way they can read. And then other
Right.
times you'll have people who are vision impaired, and that's the only way that they can like easily absorb media, or someone who's actually blind, and that's another way because there's not a lot of people who put out braille books at the moment. So it is kind of a nice thing to be able to at least have something in that format. But
Right.
yeah, So I see a comment pop up and said, I think my writing would be best described as doodles with intent. I like that. Doodles with intent is fascinating. Yeah, love audiobooks. And but yeah, it is. I will admit, as an author, I never really listened to an audiobook until I got into the process of having my own being converted. So bad on me. But since then, it's a lot of fun listening to them. Do you listen
Yeah.
to audiobooks? So what's your favorite way to read? Because again, everybody has their favorite. I'm a print, like I said.
My absolute favorite way to read is to have the book at hand,
Hmm.
a hardcover or a paperback book. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have a lot on my library on my phone because, it's less expensive and I'm more prone to take the phone with me everywhere so I can, read at a moment's notice. But there's some particular books and just like everybody else, I shouldn't do this, but I judge books by their cover. I'll walk around, I'll see a book and say, man, this would be nice to have with me at the beach. Or
Hmm.
I'm laid up in the living room and it's raining outside, cats and dogs, and I just want to have something nice to read or something to share with my wife that we would both like or something like that. I like to be able to have that tangible book. So that's my favorite way to read.
Hey, I'm with you. I like I said, I like to hold it and the weight of it. Everybody has their reasoning, but I think it's always because also I grew up with them, and when the ebooks came out and became super popular, and I'm not very tech savvy, I have to force myself to do all the tech stuff for being an author and marketing and producing and publishing and all that kind of stuff. But it's not really my forte. So having just like an old school bound book is my favorite, and also the problem with that is they take over your house and you run out of your bookshelves and then
Right.
that's my
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to really have that problem in the near future. The thing that's really gotten me into danger, if you want to call it that, in books taking up space, that sort of thing. Early on in my efforts of writing, I decided to join a podcast where we, critique books. And our thing is that we look for books with strong female characters, and
Hmm.
we we try to pick popular books that have maybe been out for a little while. Yeah, exactly. So that when we do a critique, it's a spoilers critique. We talk in depth about the
Hmm.
books, and it's really upped my reading game. It was shameful for me to say, but early on, I wasn't much of a reader before I decided to, really get into writing. And that's another essential thing. You need to read as much as you can, at least in a genre you're interested in. And in my case, reading everything because genre is not, I don't
Well,
stay in that lane. I'm the guy all over the road that you honk your horn at when it comes to genre.
oh, no.
So hopefully I'll have to buy some bookshelves and get these things, put away. But for the most part, I get those as ebooks too, but I keep them and share them, especially the ones that we recommend highly, because there's not enough literature out there with strong female characters, at least in, my short experience.
Yeah, well, I think that thankfully that's been changing over the recent years, especially in the indie bracket. There's a lot of people who are realized that not that long ago it was very male forward, but the expansion of diversity in literature is going in all different directions, so that's fantastic. I see a couple more comments popping up. One saying, found a lot of audiobooks on YouTube. Did not know that can happen. That is interesting. And someone else was like saying, my ex took the library, so I have mainly ebooks and audiobooks at the moment. Hey, they're easier to travel with.
Yeah.
I know. I've moved multiple times over the past few years, and carrying a whole library with you, it's not fun. Let me ask you, because you did mention again about the fact that you don't write in a specific genre, which I think is fantastic. But going forward, since you are trying to potentially publish slash find someone to represent your other books that are coming down the pipe, how are you going to represent, or have you thought about how you're going to market yourself as an author? Because sometimes I know from people who do write in multiple genres, they either go the pen name route so they can split up each subgenre or genre so readers easily know what they are expecting from you. Then again, other authors don't. It makes it a little more confusing for the reader, but I was just curious, what is your strategy? Have you thought about that yet?
I have thought about that a little bit, and it came to mind as I was going through TikTok book talk on that subject. It made me sit back and think, oh yeah, they have a point because me, I'm so new in the game, I didn't know what I didn't know. So my original plan,
I love
yeah,
that thing. I
my
use it all
my
the time.
original yeah, my original plan was to just write books and put my name on them and whatever. But to be realistic, if I gather a following in one particular book, I don't want to mislead anybody and say, hey, this is a rom-com. This doesn't have any demons and angels in it. What's going on here? So I am considering pen names, doing it that route because it just makes more sense.
Mhm.
And when it comes to the marketing part of it and everything, I was hoping to get some guidance in that area. I'm really thinking about getting an agent, because right now I'm agentless, even though I have a publisher, and I know that there are many benefits to having an agent, and I was hoping that, to get that person's his or her input on that too. But right now I'm kind of leaning towards a different pen name for the different genres. But the real focus right now with my tendency to procrastinate and the time that I have and all the ideas I have is just get the writing done
Yeah,
and
that's
have that
the most
problem.
important.
I need to have that problem first.
Yes. No, that's the thing is there are so many other things that can distract a writer, and being a writer inherently means writing, so you have to make sure you have the time to write because that is probably the primo thing. Everything else can fight for your second level of attention. But yeah, no, I understand about that. For me, when I kind of market, I decided against a pen name as of yet, but it does make it kind of sticky because I write epic fantasy, but in different ages. And so I have to be I try to be as clear as possible of saying this is young adult, new adult, adult. Even though they're all fantasy, some of them are a lot more fun and some are a lot more gritty. And so I could have split into three different pen names by now, but I just wanted to do epic fantasy as one. If I do, down the line decide to dabble in sci-fi or something maybe romantic, my books aren't really romance focused. But if I did want to, then I would probably have to pick up a pen name because that would really confuse people.
Yeah. So would you say that the series that you have out right now under your name, they're all pretty much close together in genre? Would you say that?
I mean, they all again fall under epic fantasy or high fantasy, so they're all based in worlds not of Earth. They're all kind of heavily immersive in fantasy elements, so depending on the mythology, you have shapeshifters, you're dealing with elves, you're dealing with dragons, you're dealing with all that kind of definitely, as they say, the high fantasy, the heavily immersive fantasy. But again, in the sense of how light or clean or fluffy versus how gritty and dark, that does vary. And so that's how I judge based on my age is more, is this something I would want a 14-year-old to read versus is this something that I wouldn't want anybody under the age of like 18 to read? And again, I don't write romance. It's more because I like darker, grittier fantasy. So more on the Game of Thrones side of things. So versus, but I guess you could argue Game of Thrones has romantic elements in it too.
That's true. I mean, I haven't watched the Game of Thrones, but my daughter was totally sold out fan of it and has told me a lot about it. So, about your writing process, let me ask you this question. I would think that at the level you are right now, with a number of series under your belt, that you have an established team put together of arc writers I mean, art readers and editors and that sort of thing. Is that the case?
I would say that I'm always polishing up and getting, improving upon my team. I have fabulous people that I've worked with, but since I am releasing two series simultaneously, I would say I would be open in the market for a secondary editor just to split the load because I am trying to put out so many so fast. It's kind of hard to do, and so my publishing schedule that I would like can't really happen in that sense. So I would prefer to down the line probably split the load between the two series and split maybe the beta readers, etc. Arc readers depend they can read whatever they want to read. And thankfully to this platform, I've been growing my art group as well, and I'll continue to grow it. I'm not necessarily at a point that I feel like I have to cap it for any reason. So in probably toward the end of this month, I'll be opening arcs are always opening arcs for my 8th volume of my Viking series as it's getting prepared to publish in the following month. But yeah, I'm always trying to work on expanding the team and polishing it up. And obviously, if you have a great person, keep them. Keep them as well as possible. And since I'm indie, I also work with, trying to work with and find people who do the formatting and the cover design as well. And so having found a few fantastic cover designers, I love them, and I try to keep them happy as much as possible because I want to continue using them in the future. How about you? I mean, you've worked with the publishing, like, I'm assuming then your publishers did some of that for you, like some or all of that for you, or what was your responsibility as a author or an author?
Wow. And this is something that I'm. It was a real going to school moment once after I got that acceptance, to talk with the publisher and find out what the process is.
Mm-hmm.
In my inexperienced mind, I was thinking, okay, they're going to get my book in front of people and that sort of thing. But it was explained to me early on, even before anything was signed, that the publisher said, look, we're a small publishing house. The promotion is basically on you. What I got from the publisher was entry into a number of venues to actually, put the book out there, their website, and they did the cover.
Mm-hmm.
So that was their artwork based on getting a little bit of input from me, which I was kind of flattered that they actually asked me, what do you see on your book cover, and came up with that result, which I'm very pleased with that one. So when I found out that my responsibility is basically to let everybody know that my book's out there and where it is available, and to get a following for me as an author. So as far as a team, I have been, I without getting too much of a sermon involved, is that, I've had people put in my path simply because I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, the writing. This is something that's I'm being led to do, because otherwise the book that I have now would not be as good as it was and even attract the attention of the publishing house that it did. I was working at a company at the time. I was just talking to someone saying, I'm writing this story, and she all of a sudden said, "Hey, I used to be a copy editor. I love reading books. Could you?" Okay, and she said, "Can I read your book?" And I was like, "This is somebody coming to." It's like somebody coming by and saying, "Oh, I love painting houses or fixing cars. Can I do that for you for nothing?
Okay,
Because it's
I
my
would like that
hobby."
too.
Yeah. So Diane Casey said to me, "I'll read your story," and she's excellent at what she does, because we had a fight after she was it was awful, but not personal fight, but we talked about people's motivations. What would they say? Mark this out, add this in. This is lacking in the story and everything. It was a wrestling match, but if it wasn't, the product wouldn't be as good as it is. And
Mhm.
and we're still friends. Nothing got personal, but I was just fortunate enough to have her, in my life. And when I went on to another job, what I call Plan A. Plan A is what pays the bills right now.
Yes.
There's another there's another lady there named Kim Tucker, and I told her about my experiences. I'm writing a second book and all this stuff, and I told her I have this book out and I have this other book I'm trying. She said, "Oh, well, I used to be a copy editor," and I was like, "No, no, no. This I said this can't happen twice. It's impossible." But she used to be a copy editor, and she read through my material, and she's still giving me tips on this second book, the Charlotte book that I talked about, to get out there. So
Mhm.
I've just been having people put in my path to help me to do these
That's
incredible
wonderful.
things. So
That is
that's my
absolutely
team so far. And like you said, I found these two quality editors. They're not going out. They're not going anywhere. I'm go-
keeping them.
going to hire people to follow them around and give tabs on them because I got to have these people. I got to have them in my life.
Yes. No, that's I think one of the scariest things is the editor I have. She is absolutely fantastic. She's, you know, spent probably an inappropriate amount to say years working in the industry and um but she's at that age where she is thinking about retiring before too long and I'm like, "Oh no. What happened? Wait, I have to start over. I have to find another one? No." That panic. But yes, no, when you find someone that's really good at the job, yes, keep them as long
Mhm.
as possible.
So let me ask you this question. Now, who in your real life has really um, that was like a mentor to you in this whole process of being an author? Is there anybody like that?
Yes, well, I've always talked about being a writer. When I started actually finally spending the time to put words on paper and create my debut book, Asara's Claws, um, I was invited to through actually my mom because she was invested in a local writing group, and that group was just there are certain groups that are very niche, others very broad, and this was a very broad one where they had everybody who's may never have written anything in their life to those who have won international awards to the editors to so it was such a nice group to get involved with early on and kind of help critique and help encourage so all of them in general were very nice. One of them was an author who was in a adult romantic fantasy, but she went indie and she was, when I was talking to her about the process, she helped me walk through the process the first time. And actually through that group, I also found my editor at the time too. So it was nice to meet people that way and have that boost initially. And since then, I try to make a point of continuously educating myself because things are always changing in the writing and publishing industry, especially if you're Indian, you're involved with your marketing and promotions and everything and trends. And so I'm always trying to make sure I take classes and listen to podcasts and listen to all this kind of stuff to be able to stay on top of everything and make sure I learn what I don't know. Because as you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And it's sometimes
Exactly.
hard to know what to ask when you don't know you're missing something. And I feel like my first book published in 2016, but yeah, it took me years to figure out what to do on the marketing and promotional end for it to finally pick up. And some people have that first book go great the first time. Others, people are like me that take years and years. And only this year did it finally start hitting the bestseller ribbons on Amazon for different categories. But it's taken me a long time to figure out what to do, how to market myself, how to do the ads, and always trying to continue to educate yourself. That's the key.
Okay, good advice. Now, you mentioned earlier your sister. You saying in childhood that you and your sister had this world in your head that you guys talked about this. Does she pursue any of the writing at all?
Interestingly enough, she was grew up to be a lot more um fiction, not fantasy. Like I'm heavy into the fantasy. You tell me the story has a dragon, I'm like, I'm there. I'm sold. I'll get it. Just point me in the direction. But but yeah, for years she went like on different interests, and recently has come back to the concept of telling stories. Though I think her first book that she's working on and is in the editing stages. I think I don't know if she's going indie yet or if she's still shopping for a potential agent, but it's going to be a Southern lit, so very different, like a humorous Southern lit story, which is very different than what I write.
Wow, that's
Very.
awesome.
But yeah, so okay, so let me ask you while we still have some time on the board, if someone's trying to find you off this platform, can they find your book? Like, do you have a website, or is it just through your publisher, or do you have other social media that people can follow you?
Well, the best thing I think for someone who wants to find me would be to use the link tree.
Okay.
So and that would be, stand by. I I should have been prepared for this.
Hey,
But
don't
the
worry.
link
What's gonna happen is when I repurpose this next week on YouTube, I'm gonna put your links below. So
okay, that's going to be awesome. Okay. Hey, look at the link below and see James's link tree. It's also on my profile. I put the link tree on my profile
perfect.
because just the idea when I discovered Linktree, when I find out, someone else on Facebook, I'm sorry, on TikTok said Linktree, and I said, what's that? And I said, man, this
Yep.
is awesome because I have a Linktree that goes to my website for the movies that we're doing. There's a blog that I have out there. There's the webpage for the book specifically. My wife and I have a podcast. We do the pod. There's a link to the podcast there. So there's a number of different ways that you can investigate and see what James the writer is up to using
Yeah.
the link tree.
Yeah, I kind of copycatted that idea because as soon as, like you said, I had never. There were things I learned being on this platform that I had no idea, and
Right.
figuring out the concept of Linktree was fascinating. I do manage my own website, so I was like, oh, I can create a page that is a links page on my website. Why don't I do that? And then when anytime you have a platform that asks for a live link, just put that in there. And I was like, oh, I should be doing that. So yeah, that concept is nice. That one click to find everything is perfectly fine. I love it. But
Yes.
okay, wait. I have a question. So you were in the movie side, and now you're in the writing to publishing side. Your first book, do you have in your head the cast of actors that would perform it if it became on the big screen? You know, if it was transformed into a movie or a miniseries or whatever, do you
Well,
do you
I
have ideas?
I sometimes I find myself when I'm watching, something on TV that I might say, that person will be good for this character or whatever. But I gotta admit, my my wife and my daughter, they're way more into the actors' first and last names, who they're dating and all this stuff. I mean, I'm just weak on that. What I usually am thinking about is who would I want to direct?
Oh,
Because
that's yes,
right,
yes.
because the director is the keeper of the story, and that's
Hmm.
their job. And I really got an idea, a vision after getting involved in making movies, how important that role is because the director can make or break a film.
Yeah.
That person has to have the vision of the story, and they're putting that vision onto the screen. So I'm way more concerned with who's going to be doing that for my story. Because if you have the right director, the character, I mean, Danny DeVito can be the main character, in the book or whatever, and be able to draw that character out of the actor because they have the
Mhm.
experience with that. And I have been asked, which directors, living or dead, would you want to be doing this this project for you. And I love movies so much. There's a whole bunch of directors, that comes to mind. And of course, you have your Spielbergs and you have your Camerons, but I start thinking about Otto Preminger. Some people you might be too young to even know who that is, but Otto Preminger is an idea. John Ford is an idea, and just based on the movies that I love that these guys did.
Yeah. Well, I was. It is always interesting when I ask that question. Think to ask that question just because some people are like, "Oh yeah, I have a whole list. I have it on my website. I can like prove that." Other people are like, I have no clue. And I'm kind of in the between stage where I definitely have certain actors or certain directors, as you were saying, that I'm like, okay, I feel you right here. I feel like this would work. Or
Mhm.
yes, if I had to pick, I'd pick this one. But then I have plenty of other characters that I'm uncertain about. And I'm like, I don't know who would represent it well, but I just want it to be represented well. By whomever. And please make sure they look like my characters. I would be a little sad if someone cast it and it just looks totally off.
Well, just for a minute, speaking of casting and everything, if we can go controversial just for a second, and if
Okay.
you want to kind of just dodge this one, I totally
Oh no.
understand. But right now, there seems to be in the industry a whole controversy um, about skin color and characters, and this everybody knows about the Little Mermaid one, and there's a lot of noise being made about in the Rings of Power because they have black elves in there. People are upset about black elves, and uh, and I just wanted to get your take on that.
Well, coming from a mythology background, there are black mermaids in certain African culture lore, and there are black elves in Norse mythology, which is what Tolkien based off of. So I disagree with all that. Also, I really, again, fantasy to fantasy. I mean, does it really matter as much? For me, it doesn't. So
Mhm.
I can argue it as it is incorrect both ways, but no, I don't. I don't really care. I do in my writing, obviously, some of the stuff that is really heavily based on, especially like my Norse one, Norse mythology. But like I said, in the mythos, there are three races of elves, and two of them are not white, and that is from the original lore. So I do kind of try to make sure diversity is represented in all my works in some way, shape, or form. And I think that is the way to go. But no, I'm not about the skin tone shaming that's going on.
Well,
They're elves,
that's
they're mermaids, they're not real.
well, it's good to know we're on the same page with that. And what just to say as a note, when Charles and I get together on a script, what we write in the story, sometimes because of the story itself, that race is a factor. However, when it's not, we're not looking for anybody in particular to fill that role. We kind of write the role as a human being that is in some kind of circumstance that's
Mhm.
entertaining, how they're going to get out of it, how they're going to overcome these obstacles to get to their goal, that sort of thing. And that can be somebody who's purple, green, white, or yellow, it doesn't matter in those cases, and we try to write that way. So, and I think it just distracts from the art of storytelling. It's kind of sad that people are wrapped up in it.
I mean, I get if you have a main character or a primary character and they're described, very particularly, that's one thing. But there are
Right.
plenty of characters and there are plenty of authors who just write in general where they don't describe the physical traits of a character. You have the personality, you can, surmise certain things, but they don't put it in because that's not the point. The point is the story. The point is maybe the personality or the situations, but it's not, yeah, the physical descriptors. So, yeah, no.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that question.
You're welcome. No, yeah, I will admit, I almost went on a rant about some of them because, again, knowing the mythos of all sorts, I'm just like, education.
Yeah.
Education is key. Oh my goodness. Anywho, well, we're rounding the end of the hour. So one of my things I like to ask is there anything you want people to know about you going forward, be it the projects that you're working on, be it just whatever. What do you want someone who's been listening in to learn a little bit more about?
Well, I'll say one thing I'll make a comment on is I was planning on this event to be after the Williamsburg Book Festival. It turned out that the Williamsburg Book Festival was not hurricane proof, so
Oh
they
no.
yeah they postponed it into February. So if you happen to be in the Hampton Roads area in February and would like to say, hey, I saw that guy on TikTok. If you want to come by and get and purchase an autographed copy of the book. Of course, I'll be there to
Yeah.
sign it and just want to talk about story. or do that sort of thing, keep following me on TikTok. I'll let you know about exact dates and exact times. I'll be pestering you from here until after the holidays about that date in February, and you can come out and check out the Williamsburg Book Festival. And since it's February, it'll be all indoors. But the biggest reason why you should go is because there'll be other authors there. There'll be publishers there, and there'll be seminars on writing, on marketing, and all that sort of thing.
Oh, I love that. No, I participated in my first con not that long ago, was Dragon Con here in Georgia, and I was a panelist because I was a panelist for Book Talk on there, and we
Oh,
just talked
cool.
about books. But it's a lot of fun to be, in a community where you have lots of other authors and you talk about books. And depending on who you are, you could do the signings or attend the signings. I attended one of another author's just because it's really kind of fun. But I love those things. So February, look for him. I like it.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, keep me abreast on all kind of things that you're producing in the future. And if you ever want to jump back on this for another little hour chat, let me know because I do this weekly.
Definitely, I will let you know. And right now, I'm gonna check with my mom between now and tomorrow morning to see if she already reads your stuff because she is a voracious reader of fantasy. That's her thing. She loves it. Or turn her on to you so she can discover your work.
Well, please do. Thank you. But yeah, no, like I said, I'll be posting all your contacts below next week people can find you at that point on YouTube as well. Okay, well, thank you again for coming out tonight, and it was lovely meeting you, and I will keep in touch.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and to everybody, thank you for joining in.
Bye.